All right, afternoon is over. It is 5 o'clock, and we have adjourned for the day in the trial of Carmen DeCruz, who is charged with manslaughter in the killing of Michael Dean. And so, Ashley Cunningham is a detective with Temple Police Department. She took the stand. She's a violent crimes investigator, and so I guess she spoke with some of the witnesses. And one of the things that came out of, I mean, there really wasn't much by way of testimony. What's going on right now is the state is just trying to build up its case. It's trying to establish jurisdiction, um, dates, times, and all the kind of backstory and stuff like that. So they're trying to get all these little details out. So not really a whole lot of earth-shattering details that came out of Detective Cunningham's testimony, but what they did show was because she took a lot of the pictures. We got to see pictures of DeCruz that night with blood on his hands, blood on his clothing, and the spent casing that was located at the scene. What I found also interesting is a couple of things on how officers are treated versus the general public, which, I mean, we all know that there's a double standard here. Um, but when they interview witnesses or suspects, it's in this very sanitized, boring room. And boring's the word that she used. Whereas DeCruz, when he was interviewed, was in the victims area, the victims room. Oh, thanks. And they've got a couch in there and some chairs and all this other kind of stuff. And he got to call a friend and have a friend with him. And by the way, they also they don't interview officers involved for 3 days. To give them time to process exactly what happened and review footage and all that. But they don't give you and I, when we're suspects to crimes, opportunities to look at evidence and formulate our plan either. But that's what Ashley Cunningham, what Detective Cunningham's testimony was mostly about, was the crime scene photos, photos of Officer DeCruz with blood on his hands and his uniform. One of the things I'm also learning is actual trials don't go, and evidence isn't presented the way that we're taught in law school. When you're on direct, you're not supposed to ask leading questions or compound questions. Generally, the witness is not allowed to read from anything because testimony is supposed to be from memory. Now, you can do, refresh memory, or recollection and things like that, but they're not supposed to be reading. That's what we were taught. Whereas what I'm seeing so far is leading questions like crazy, compound questions like crazy, and then, of course, allowing witnesses to have their statements and essentially read from them, which that's not the way I was taught how to do things, but I guess that's the way it is in the real world. The next witness up was Texas Ranger Adam Russell. We saw photos of the crime scene as well. His video walking around the crime scene. You could also tell one of the things that came out was, Michael Dean was driving the vehicle, but he got pulled. So after being shot in the head, he was pulled out of the vehicle through the passenger seat. I don't understand that. That seems to be a little bit more violent and shocking to a newly shot body than pulling him out from the driver's side. As a matter of fact, he had a shoe left in the vehicle and a shoe in the, that had just fallen out as he was pulled out of the vehicle. I mean, so that I don't get. If he wasn't injured before, he was probably injured after the fact that he got pulled across two seats instead of just going out the driver's side. I mean, maybe there's some police reason for that, but I found that to be interesting that Michael Dean was pulled out that way. So he didn't really provide much anyway. He did talk about, this is the other thing though, that just shows that the system is stacked against you and I versus cops. So when police do a statement, they're allowed to have their attorney with them when it's like an officer involved shooting or something of that nature. And before that statement is officially accepted or handed over, the attorney has a right, or I don't know if it's a right, but the attorney gets to review the statement and make any revisions or edits, and they get to, rewrite over whatever they want to rewrite over before it's accepted, before the final statement. And that's what this Texas Ranger was talking about, is when they do these interviews with cops that are involved in these types of incidents, generally during the interview, they'll have an attorney with them, and the attorney will review the statement before, it's handed over. Which essentially, can you imagine if you and I had that? Wouldn't that be great? Being able to, one, look at all the evidence against us before we made a statement, and two, had an attorney be able to. Now, you do have the right to have an attorney present during questioning at all times, just so you know. But, before making that statement, having the police go, okay, are you sure this is what you want to say in there? The next witness up was Nicholas Prouty. He was just one of the first officers to respond after the shooting, and just talked about mostly the fact that they did his dash cam and body cam footage of them trying to resuscitate Michael Dean after he was shot. They did do chest compressions, and they did hook him up to an AED. They showed the body cam footage. And DeCruz had applied by the time Officer Prouty arrived, DeCruz had already applied like a bandage around the head, because of course he got shot in the head. Not really a lot came out of there, just that his testimony was that he was him and another officer, which was Officer Davila, and really Davila was the next person up. We saw her dash cam footage as well, and her and Davila were there trying to help provide life-saving measures to Michael Dean. At one point, I think they said they did feel a pulse when they hooked up the AED. The AED said, "Do not shock. Go ahead and continue life-saving measures." So what we found out is so far, just the only facts that have really come out regarding this case are that somebody was shot. Michael Dean was indeed shot. Officers did respond to a call for backup, and apparently it was just a normal, initially at least, a normal traffic stop. And then the officers testified that after the normal call came across the radio, there was a call for backup, and they could tell that DeCruz's voice was stressed. Now, they're in a place out here in Temple. It's called Blackland, which is out. There's a USDA facility out there, and it's essentially very rural. Although they are building more neighborhoods out there, but it's essentially a very rural type area. There's not a lot of lights, and that call came at the intersection of, I think, Little River Road and Blackland, which again is a rural area. And that was when he was doing the pullover. And then Michael Dean pulled over in the Tractor Supply parking lot. So that just proves to me that he was not necessarily evading like they're trying to paint this as, but he was looking. There aren't any places to pull over between and I need to go back and look out there. Maybe I'll ask my son, because he works out in that area somewhere. But it's not like there's a bunch of parking lots and places to pull over that aren't literally off the road. You'd be driving into dirt, essentially, because there's no shoulder in that area. And so the earliest place you'd be able to pull over in a place that's lighted and would likely feel safe for everybody was that Tractor Supply, from my recollection. I mean, I don't go out there a lot. I do, if I ever go out to Little River Academy, I go down that road I think it's called 95. I can't remember what the road is called, but it's Little River Road, and the Loop is where he stopped. But supposedly the chase or the evasion began at Blackland, which was, just a few blocks away. So um, we'll find out more, I guess, tomorrow. They're done for the day. I will be back here tomorrow at 9 o'clock to hear more testimony and let you know what's going on with this trial. Carmen looks a little bit different. He had very short hair. I think he was even bald when the actual incident happened. And he's now got this long, he's kind of got like a salt and pepper hair with a long ponytail in the back. He's looking kind of Native American. And I'm wondering if that's the attempt, is to portray him as a non-white dude. I don't know. I'm just saying he looks a lot different than he did in the videos and in his arrest photo. It's been 3 years, so I don't know if he's been growing this thing for 3 years or what. All right, that's it for day 2. I will see y'all tomorrow with day 3 and let you know what's going on. Like I said, I think today, for the most part, was just sort of laying the groundwork and studying the basis for when they get into the actual negligence of the shooting. And I don't know if Carmen DeCruz himself is going to testify. I would expect him to in a case like this, but we'll see. The case is supposed to, I talked to the prosecutors today, and she told me it's definitely going to be going into next week, so it won't be a short thing. All right, y'all, take care. Be safe. Be free. See you tomorrow for day 3.